From a background standpoint, for those who are listening or in the audience, we are your financial advisor. Fortunate to do that. Appreciate that. We have put together and have tried to do multi-year planning on the capital side, the debt side, financial policies, as well as, of course, implementing some of that we will call new money and refinancings. So this is, of course, new money because, again, you're raising things to do certain projects. I list there what is expected, and that's an $8 million funding of projects, and we'll go over that. It's nothing new. You'll see that in a page or two. And again, you recall on the very bottom point, in our work with you, we had talked about potentially having all of this with the existing debt on the school that you did, or we did with you. It was either going to be anywhere from 3 penny equivalent to 5.5 penny equivalent. And I think the key word here is equivalent, because again, you can come up with recurring dollars from wherever you deem appropriate. We just use the real estate as sort of a bellwether. It's easier for people just to say, okay, I get a sense of every penny, I'm gonna round off here. Every penny is slightly under $190,000. So if it's 3 pennies, we'll round off here. It's about $570,000. We get the sense of that. So that's what we do here. The good news is that with this plan, no matter what you see here in terms of the options, the 3 pennies is going to be sufficient. That's important. We don't need 4 to 5. We need the 3 pennies. And that broke down, nothing new here, is to 1 penny was what you've already done. We talked about that the last meeting I was here. And so we need the equivalent going forward of an additional 2 pennies for this $8 million funding. That's what we need. And that's what you'll see here. Okay. Next 2 pages on interest rates. They are very strong in the historical. They've moved up slightly. So our goal is to get it done and not try to second guess the market. You can see on the right-hand side, for example, the 10-year Treasury has moved up almost 1%. Again, that sounds like a lot, but when you compare it to where it was in 2000, it was at 7%. And if you look at where it was in 1980s, it was considerably higher than that. So again, we are still in a very, very good mode, but it has been some pressure, upward pressure. And I think with all this stimulus talk and all the things going on, while I'm not an economist, I do worry that there could be some inflation, but again, who knows? Good news here, though, on the executive summary, is that interest rates are historically on the low side. The county itself is viewed very positively by the folks that are looking at you. And as a result of that, we actually got 6 different bids, really 7 when you think about the fact that Truist recently was BB&T and SunTrust, and those 2 historically had been interested and had bid on the county. So one could almost argue that we got 6.5 to 7 bids, which is really an excellent number relative to the size that you're looking for, the complexity. There's lots of different pieces. And on top of that, the fact that the banks are very busy right now. I mean, they are quite busy. So we're very excited about that. And you can see at the very bottom there, as I said, we need the equivalent, and you're doing your budgets, and this has been factored in. Dr. Millsaps and Cindy, and we've all talked, and I know my colleagues were on the phone with you last Friday, I think it was, not Saturday. I was actually in a retreat on Saturday. But they did all that. And so I think from that side, we're in good shape. Now it's a matter of fine-tuning exactly which bank or banks we end up going with. So the last point here on the summary on page 5 is to get all of this done, we're recommending the equivalent of 3 pennies. It doesn't, again, have to be real estate only. We are recommending, as we said, that we're going to use $175,000 meals tax revenues on a regular basis, beginning in 22. And then lastly, you know we've got this capital reserve fund we set up. The reason we set that up was for this day and time. $197,000 is basically from the refinance savings that we had. That's going to be helpful, as is using that 400,000 of the meals tax fund balance. So collectively, we're going to strategically use this reserve to keep those pennies down. That's the whole point here, and that's why you have it. And that's why we've talked about it over the last couple of years. So having said that, just to repeat for everyone, the 27th is when we ask for formal decision, and we hope that this will be enough today to start that ball rolling. Okay, so what is the $8 million, in case anybody's not remembering it as well? The radio system, almost $5 million. The new rec office remodel is $350. Fire truck at $580. Shell building, that's the net after the grant monies, is $1.8 million. And then the garbage truck ambulance is at $420. Collectively, that's $8 million. I would point out, if it turns out for some reason that we have some dollars left over, somehow those monies left over would be used for debt service. That's how it typically works. I don't think we're going to be short. If we are, hopefully it's a very minimal amount that we're short, and we've got some reserve dollars that potentially could be used towards that. That's part of why you've got a very ample reserve that we're not tapping into, which is that we don't want to, but again, if you should be off by 100,000, 200,000, something like that, if that's the case, you've got that ability to be flexible. You may recall there was a time when, and we suggested against it, as did the auditors, that the Shell building was thought they would pay cash for some of that, and that was depleting your fund balance by $1.5 or $2 million. That did not make sense for keeping you in good stead. And again, I think the fact that all these different banks have come through and put together proposals tells you what you need to know, which is Floyd County is viewed very positively by the investment market investors. So that's great. Okay, so you've got a slew of options, and in fact, by the time I get done, I'm going to show you another option that's sort of a hybrid of all this that we think blends all this very, very well. So the first option, not necessarily in the order of it always, but basically is Truist. And they have said they would do all $8 million. Then the second is a combination of Skyline and Sterling Bank. Sterling's a major bank. And they would do combo of this, broken out basically 6.7 by Sterling, 1.3 by Skyline. And then Skyline put in another bid saying that they would do it all themselves as well, like Truist. So they've each given us some things to think about. So what did we think about? How do we approach all this? So this is what we said on the very bottom. We wanted to look at these options and others and ask ourselves the following critical questions. Number one, does the proposal, whatever that is, or combination of proposals, provide the full funding of $8 million? We want to make sure, number one, that whoever gave us a bid gave us for everything, and that's the first thing we care about. Second, are the interest rates fixed for the full term of the loans? We wanted to make sure there was no rate reset if you could avoid it. Therefore, we didn't have to worry about interest rates going up. And in fact, if they go down, we said to ourselves, can we prepay it? That's the fourth question, so we'll get to that as well. Then we said, number 30, what is the total cost over the life of the loans of the various proposals? Then we said, what is the collateral? We knew that, the old deal, I always like to kid about Mr. Yoder's truck. I told you it wasn't going to work for this one. I'm right. Unfortunately, I'd love to have this sort of
Floyd, my 99 Suburban.
2006 fan.
Well, see, y'all just told me each one.
We're getting some real money now.
If I remember, we had 5 different pieces of collateral that we put together. We might have a possibility here. But,
Joe bought his truck.
My farm truck, but you want.
So, like I said, unfortunately, even if we combine them, we're not going to have enough. But you'll see, so it's interesting, a lot of very unique thoughts here by people on that. And so we asked about that. And then the fifth thing we asked is, what are the prepayment provisions, if any? How are they looking? And then lastly, we said, okay, what is any other consideration we got to take into consideration? That's why we said it. Okay. So, here's, your eyes may not be so good, I apologize. We want to try to get us all on the same page. It's a good thing I kind of have this memorized because I can't really read it myself and certainly can't see it up on the screen. So, the first question, full 8 million, all three of those proposals meet that criteria. That's the key first point. And the second, are the interest rates fixed? The second good point, all three proposals are fixed interest rates, no resets that we have to worry about. Then the third question is, okay, what was the lowest cost, or relatively speaking, how do they compare to each other? And so Truist had the lowest all-in cost. We shared that with your staff. It's in the back. It's roughly, again, creates annual debt service around 2.8 million, that range, which is what we estimated. If we go with the second option, that combo, it's about $63,000 more expensive over time. And then if we go with Skyline alone, this is their best and final. Interestingly enough, we told them, I said, you're not as competitive, so we want to jump ahead and tell us, is this your... So they actually reduced it, and with their reduction, they're still about $365,000 more expensive than the options. So as a result, we didn't even bother to ask Truist or Sterling to make a better bid. We potentially could, but I felt like we're in good stead with those bids. So I want you to know that because our focus, and you'll see in a minute, there's going to be a fourth financing option that we're going to recommend. And I will tell you right now, that fourth option, is going to be basically, if you see option 2, where Sterling is in at 6.7 million, we talked to Truist since I've spoken to your staff, and they said they are willing to do 6.7 million. And they're willing to do it at the interest rates that we had asked for. So actually, when we put that option together, that is no more expensive. It's basically almost identical to just the Truist only option. In fact, maybe even a little better. But again, we'll massage those numbers over the next couple of weeks.
So you're saying Sterling and Skyline?
No, so if we take out Sterling and put in Truist for...
There, okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so the point is, so Skyline still is a part of it, and Truist now is the major part of it.
Gotcha.
So it's option 2 with an asterisk, if you would. And that's what we're recommending. So the reason for that, let's go to prepayment provisions. Also another positive, and there's a lot to see here. Oh, let me start with, I forgot the important one, the collateral. So here's the point. Truist told us all we want is this county administration building. We don't care about the other 2 buildings. We don't care about the radio system. We don't care about all of the various equipment, with SAD in the truck and the phone. We don't need any of that. Just make it simple, one piece. We thought that's great, and it is good. If they were part of, let's say, the team between they and Skyline, that doesn't change. Skyline is not asking for any collateral on their 1.3 million. So the good news then is we just have this building alone, which will take care of it. There's another good part to this. It's also evolving. It's not necessarily in here. And that is that the folks over at Truist have indicated that should we have some stimulus dollars that, let's say, could go towards another project, and we want to exchange or, in fact, trade out one project for some other project, you have that ability to do that. That's not a problem. So we found that out this morning. So it's been productive since we've had our discussions with staff in that all the things we hope to hear, we've got. The other thing that we like here is that Truist has already done their credit analysis. They are good. They have said you are credit approved. Skyline at 1.3 million, you're credit approved. What Skyline did say though is if we wanted to go with them only, that's sort of that third option, which I don't recommend because it's more expensive and what have you. The problem with that is that they are not yet credit approved. They believe they will be, and I think they will be. But what they also have to do is to drop down your line of credit from
Right.
3.5 million to 2. That's because they can only take so much banking exposure for one entity, meaning for the county. Frankly, I don't see that as a problem, but I really think that the hybrid of Truist and Skyline is really an ideal hybrid. Sterling won't be happy, but that's why we do this, that's why it's a negotiation, and it's the way it is. So the other thing about this is the prepayment provisions. Truist allows us basically to prepay pieces of it, minimal penalty. Skylines is very flexible, prepayment and all anytime. We can do what we want in part, that's exactly ideal what you want. And then if we were to look at, again, something of a combo with Sterling, that's much less flexible. Sterling really basically has you out there, have to be out for 7 years, that can be very expensive now. So I just think that when all is said and done, if we had one more day to be in front of you today, I would have revamped this and let you know, here's the option we really do recommend. Wouldn't that be as difficult? It would be more like, okay, here's your local bank option, which is not bad, but here's a much better, it's a hybrid, is really the ideal. So that's really all of it for you. Again, no actions need to be taken, but the hope here is if indeed we have some consensus, you can look at page 9, and this is the schedule. So I, or someone would be back on the 27th. We would ask that you formally approve what have you. We'd also like to have the board today reach out to the EDA and try to get them, because they are, if you recall, they are technically the issuer of any of your debts. That's how it works under Virginia law. And so that's nothing new, but we want to make sure that we get their EDA meeting. Steve Durbin is their bond or legal advisor at Sands Anderson, so it's the same firm that represents you as your bond advisor. And so the thinking would be, and I'm just throwing this out, it could be the same time, it could be a simultaneous meeting, but due to COVID, maybe not. It could be right thereafter, it could be the next day or so, even a couple of days later. It doesn't have to be one day later. But the idea would be that it's early enough and quick enough that we can close, which we're required to do, by May 21st. That's the sort of the critical date. So to work the documents and make sure all of that. Plus, I think it would be helpful if the representation, meaning Dr. Millsaps or maybe someone from the board if necessary, lets the EDA know after the 27th that, hopefully that we are in favor of this, we'd like you to do this. And then once again, Steve will make sure that they understand they're not liable legally, it's a pass-through, it's a conduit. We go a little further south into North Carolina, the same structure doesn't exist. There is no EDA doing this, it's just the county board. That's just what we operate here in Virginia. So with that said, I want to, be here to answer any questions. Thank the staff, they've been terrific. We've spent a whole lot of time on this, but it's been a lot of fun because you love to see stuff work out. And, I know you all well enough at this point over the years that this was hopefully what we got, and we got it. So now the goal is to maybe try to answer any questions and fine tune it.
I just want to make sure I make sure I understand. You're basically recommending option 2, but it's substituting Truist for Sterling. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's exactly it.
All the way through.
Yeah.
What's the advantage to going with the hybrid versus just Truist and hold? It looks like the interest rates are.
I think the advantage is you get to keep some money locally. That's really a big advantage because the cost is almost identical. Meaning, so that our thinking was Truist was happy doing essentially, I'm around off 6.5 million, 6.7 million. And this way, Skyline is a good local bank and they get to be a part of that. And it's not financially going to hurt you and they're not asking for any collateral and allowing you to prepay any time. It just gives you that much flexibility to get it all done. So that was our thinking.
So under number 2, the only collateral would still be this building.
That's correct. Yeah, that's what I said. If I had another day, Mr. Booth, I would be able to put together a little amended version of this, run it by staff and say, this is even a cleaner result than even what number 2 looks like. So that's the beauty of it.
And we are, as far as the 1.3 with Skyline, we're approved for that.
You are. That's exactly right. You wouldn't be approved yet for the whole 8 million. I'm not worried about that, but
If we go with the split, we don't need the whole from them.
that's right. That's
And
right.
Truist is okay with the same approved with the 6.7 as the other one.
Yes, because they were approved up to 8 to go to 6.7. We just want to make sure they were okay having their loan shave a little bit, and they were. So that was not a problem.
Yeah, I really hate that, it's gonna cost us $363K to go with all Skyline. That's unfortunate that they couldn't,
That was the best. It was over 500. It was about 600,000 before.
To begin with.
Yeah, to begin with, so.
that's too bad.
Yeah.
That really is too bad.
Well, again, they're a good bank. It's just, but you got other, let's face it, Truist is also here in the community, and, it's important to, I think, spread it around and to let them know.
Well, it's a great table, great presentation. That's also don't like that one, that penalty list. Not a fan of prepaid penalties. Never have been, never will. Skyline's not charging us a prepayment on anything. I don't know.
Any other questions?
I'm kind of getting used to this collateral deal after 3 years.
I'd rather have it on us.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
We pushed to start pretty good. I think, we did. Again, remember that, so the Skyline part, meaning the 1.3, will not have any collateral tied to it, which is good. And like I said, the Truist part will have just the county admin building here. And if we again substitute out something for when it occurs, if we find we're allowed to do that, we want to do that, it's a lot of ifs. But we've got that flexibility, and that was important. So I have a feeling we're going to end up closing with good by 21st. It will probably be within a few days of that the government's supposed to come back with their indications of how to look at the stimulus dollars. So
Which might play into the whole picture. It just depends on how it can be utilized.
So if I'm reading this right, on the Sterling and Skyline proposal, which would then be the Truist and Skyline would do the rec building, the 2 trucks and the ambulance. There's 4 parts, and the Truist would do the radios and the shell building.
that's correct. That's right. And the beauty of that is they're letting us, when we look at the radio and the rec building, the radio and the shell building, we can basically prepay one of them and not prepay the other. We have that option, so that's what we wanted. And we can substitute. So if we want to substitute, let's say, one for another, something else, we can do that too. So that's what I'm saying. It's as good a bid as I could have hoped for in all of this.
As long as it's within the structure set up, we can switch them out.
When you say structure set up.
I mean, as far as price.
Yes, right, sure. And I suspect, though, that if there's some, again, I'm gonna speculate here, which is not always good, but I'm doing this a long time. I suspect, let's say it's 4.8 and something gets moved that's 4.5 million, or something gets moved that's 5.1 or something, chances are that'll work. We might need to have another approvals and what have you, have to go through those processes, but I suspect that within reason, they're gonna work with us. I think that'd be the goal.
It looks like maybe it would cost around 4,000 a year to go with split one road.
Don't jump quite yet, Mr. Gator, I'm not sure that's right. We'll have to get the subtle updated. Yeah, like I said, it's gonna be close, so I don't wanna tell you, it'll cost you 4, before, I don't know yet. So, you know. Oh, I see, because what you were doing is taking the 15 or so, dividing it from the 63.
No, I'm just looking at I was just taking the 4 items that we would move from truist to,
Right.
on the breakout here.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at the
I wouldn't quite do
breakdown by
that.
year.
Don't do that quite yet. Okay, I'm not sure it's gonna be, we got to roll in any issuance costs, we gotta do that, and so it's gonna be, like I said, even if we went as far as the third option, which is considerably more, it's still falling within the 3 pennies, it still falls around with that. But again, I think we're gonna end up being a little bit better than everything we show, so,
I'll spend more money than we.
yeah. But I can have that, we'll have that for the 27th, that'll be no problem.
Well, it's fun, and
Do you have anything else, Jonas?
No, whenever you get those numbers, you send them along, I love looking.
Appreciate you making the trip down.
Yes, thank you.
yes.
Well, no, it's important. I mean, I think it's an evolving process, but, you know, again, hopefully this is helpful.
Yeah.
So what would you, any sense that, we'll update those numbers, we'll be talking to the banks some more, and again, we can have all that, send that through your staff, probably a week or so from now or something like that, but, that would be the thinking, so that we,
Everybody happy?
I don't know if anybody's happy or not. We're starting to talk about real dollars now.
Yeah.
Coming on with that, and one or the other until I saw the final numbers.
Yeah.
I see advantages both ways.
thank you so much. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Good travels.
Thank you.
Not the road we used up for the old times.
Oh.
We just gonna have
No
to penalize
problem.
you a little bit, yes.
I got everything done early on Tuesdays, is usually our time, so. But, just give you a few updates, I think, what I did with the board last night, as far as the building and the HVAC, everything's going well. We're doing it meticulously, and we're gonna make sure it's done right. We meet, every 2 weeks, especially with the HVAC. One of the things with the HVAC, and I told you before, it's just, you never have this timing again in a lifetime. Everything that was cut down to make it a feasible amount, we're putting it back. So those are starting, that process will start. We'll have AC, hopefully by the end of this month, 1st of May, but then we're going to go right behind it And the air handler units, the circulation, we're putting brand new ones in. We weren't even going to refurbish, we were going to leave the ones we had. This is going to create much more efficiency and much better airflow. They'd have worked without them. Obviously, they're very costly, but now we have the funds that are earmarked for it, which is the beautiful thing about CARES and ESSER. They're very, very specific. I spend a lot of time collaborating with BDOE Finance. We want to make sure we're doing it all right because there's a lot of auditors with eyes on federal money, as you all know. So the HVAC's doing well, and we'll be able to get complete controls in every one, which was taken out of every school. That's in the process. We're doing bipolar ionization in every building. So depends on the air units, whether it's a window unit, it's going to get it. Whether it's our new HVAC, it's going to get it. So we'll be up to date with all that. We're still on track with the CCDC, and hopefully, get dried out more. I'd like to get that parking lot done over there. They're laying block this week. So we're good on the building part, on the new section. I'm going to try to see if we can't push some more, and a lot of inspectors out there, so they want to make sure the compaction's right, but love to have that parking lot done, at least gravelled and lined off for the start of school next year and football season. So we'll have a nice area there, but that's going well. Well within budget at this point, and we continually work with our teachers, look at the equipment in there. We want to get everything that we possibly can new as we look at some of the, especially the welding equipment, especially the building trades. We're doing it with automotive, but everything else will be new with the other areas there. So we're in great shape there from that standpoint. So those are going well. The budget which you have, we stretched this budget. The objective was to give back debt every time it comes off and not ask for any more. The other objective is to continually be competitive with providing the best resource we can for kids, which is teachers, and pay them as well as we can, plus increasing the experiences, which we're well on our way to that. Part of that was the supplemental income that we're doing because we just got those 2 grants in, which are tremendous. Staff's done a great job with that, and getting in Amazon Future Engineers and getting the advanced computing grants, so we have those programs. So we're able to do it. We are using some CARES to fund this. If not, we'd be coming back and saying that 208 we're asking less. We need about 60 or 120. But we are utilizing the relief money to be able to bridge it for a few years, and I think we'll be okay. Like I always tell you, a budget's not a year-to-year in the school system because we don't generate our own income. We have no way to generate it. So I think we're good, and we're going to get all the resources, all the people we need, and we're going to continually remain efficient because that's the only way you can continue to give whatever we need to stay as far as pay. I mean, you have to be efficient. As people retire and as you look at your needs, you absorb what you can and you give back what you can. And over the last 2 years, unfortunately, we've had to absorb a couple and just take it somewhere else just because of the COVID budget last year. But the budgets are good overall in the state, which is plus. We're still less, almost 400,000 from what was lost last year, but we're doing okay. I think this is a big win this year to be able to get this budget where it is right now and be able to take all the debt service and give it right back to you and still provide everything we need. So I think we're in good shape there, and because of the Relief Act and because of those, you're talking 2 or 3 more years, just like you all have to spend some of that money. Ours is not as much as most school divisions, but the infrastructure that we're able to improve with the HVAC And once we see the next criteria with the ESSER 3, I mean, we'll make sure every building is between roofs, circulation, air circulation, and every other part. We'll be able to make sure this is going to come out basically a brand new school division with all buildings up to date and ready to go for a long, long time. So, and I appreciate y'all being part of that. You know, with the biggest step with the HVAC system. So, but that's where we are with everything, and we're very fortunate to have started on August 11th, because now we're gearing down, and we're going to have a great summer experience in June for a lot of kids that need it for the whole month. And so we're looking forward to the next day, like all of you are. Hopefully that'll start in August when we get a new school year and end this one successful.
Did I understand you correctly? You said every building and all units will be ionized?
Every one of them. Every one of them. From the school board office to the bus garage to the technology house, and whether it's whether it's a window unit or whether it's a whole HVAC system. It'll all be, and you know, the maintenance on it is minimal. So
Long time coming.
well, we have the new gym. We got it done before volleyball, before we were in there with basketball, and we have our high school cafeteria done already, because those were two of the largest gathering spaces. So we got those done very early.
Ms. Hannibal says it's good when a plan comes together.
I'm gonna tell you, this is something. This is really something, how it all worked. How it all working and continue to work out and continue to grow for this whole community. So,
Mr. Chair, if I might, I also would like you all to know how helpful Dr. Wheeler has been on some kind of operational issues as well. You know, of course, as you know, they let us use the fields for the rec program, and has over time made a lot of changes to make that work. And even the one facility that doesn't have well facilities, he's allowing us to actually bring in porta johns, so they'll have at least something. So appreciate all of that kind of work. And I even stopped by, mentioned I think at our budget meeting, but just to kind of link it up, that I've also gone by and talked to your building trades instructor about some ideas related to our favorite subject, green boxes. So everybody has always been really, really willing to help out across the board. So very much appreciated.
and you'll like this. We're looking at the old gym there. We did a lot of improvements over the years. We're going to get a cost on getting air conditioning in that. We need to take down that old divider, and we'll do that in-house with funding. And then those basketball goals need to be changed so they are electronically winch systems, because that's extremely dangerous the way it is. Once we do that, you're going to have one heck of a basketball indoor venue right here in Floyd, and you throw Willis in that, you can have some great tournaments. You can have it, because you'll have 5 gyms all air conditioned with great seating in a very close locale. So you've got a lot of possibilities there. So hopefully I'll keep you up to date on that. We're in the process now of getting bids on that old gym. Let's see what we got.
It's great to have something for these kids to do.
Absolutely.
Yep, and we'll get that rec started back up next year inside. Hopefully we'll be there.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Anything else? Thank you.
Well, I appreciate y'all.
Thank
Enjoy
you
the
very
rest of
much.
your day.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah, Dr. Mustafa, back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we made it down to, we're now at 7I, so we're getting closer to the bottom. And so really 7I and J, I guess, should really kind of be together, if you will. As you know, there has been an enormous amount of things that have been going on or brought to our attention around the issues of solid waste, green boxes being part of that, but also some other things. So let me start with, if I might, with the DEQ issues and kind of a similar EPA potential issue, and then we'll talk about some proposal that I'd like for you all to consider related to this. But as you know, we did get a warning letter from the Department of Environmental Quality, and that is in your packet. But so I wanted to make sure you were aware of it. But essentially, the only concern on this was that the report was received late from our consultants. And so I received this morning, that's why it's not in your packet, because it just came while we were sitting here, the full letter of explanation from our consultant to DEQ. They'd already given me kind of a shorthand email version, which was effectively some folks kind of got behind in their office and they're dealing with their staff issues and people working at home, COVID, kind of the litany of things. But nonetheless, that's so they have prepared that for us to send forward. So it's something, of course, we need to pay attention to, but it's not of great concern, but something I want to make sure you're aware of.
Well, that was going to be my question as to what was going on, so that answered that, so.
Yeah, I do wonder though, I mean, we're paying them a good amount of money, and I know COVID struck, and I know staff issues are such, but
this wasn't anything that was a surprise.
that's exactly where I was gonna go with this. It wasn't like this was a surprise.
They didn't come up in the last minute and say, hey, we want to report on this.
Was there anything else that was given to you? I mean, are we,
So the particular,
I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be harsh,
I understand.
but
Late is late.
late is late, and we pay them to do a job. And I understand COVID, and I know it's impacted us, but
And any repercussions comes on us, not them.
yeah. Anyway, so you say you have something, yes?
Yes, so they sent the letter this morning as their response. And the particular paragraph of notes says, as stated in our August 25th, 2021 notification, which must be, to be huge, Draper 8 exceeded the notification time frame due to a combination of a change in laboratory LIMS system and corresponding report submittal process and staff remotely working from home. The final installment of the laboratory report was not recognized as being received until August 25th, at which time we immediately notified VDEQ. Draper 8 Associates addressed these issues previously with the laboratory. We have also taken steps to improve our internal processes. The letter they sent me actually refers to August of 2021, but I assume that is a typo, and I will follow up with them on that.
Yeah, August 12th, yeah.
Okay, so that's item 1.
So that still doesn't answer our questions. Did they apologize in that letter?
This is the letter that's addressed to DEQ.
I'd be curious to know what steps that they've taken to improve the process and how that's going to benefit Floyd County.
Okay, we'll put that on our conversation with them about this.
Definitely let them know we were very concerned about missing deadlines.
I think if we respond to the question, it may perhaps help them to understand this is an important issue for us.
Yeah, we take this seriously. I mean, this isn't something that we rely on. That's the key here, is we rely on their expertise to know when the timelines are. And everybody had issues last year, and I get that, but
I guess for me, that comes from a standpoint of we're trying to get off of their list and
yeah.
now we're on it with a warning.
Yeah, I know, here we are, and they were the ones telling us yeah, we're doing so good, we're gonna be off there, yeah, they won't be watching us, and then wham.
I might be struggling a little bit with the timeline and their explanation.
Mhm.
So from what I understand, the sample was taken on May 13th. The deadline for them to get that information to DEQ was July 25th. And it says the lab data release date was June 11th. Does that mean that the data came back from the lab on June 11th, or that's when it was supposed to? That's the part that could, because they kind of blame the lab a little bit there.
Yeah.
There's a month
But
there.
if they had it back on June 11th, that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
quite a period. That's what I would
Yes.
like.
It is concerning. Now, I will say stuff coming out of DEQ is also very, very slow as well.
Sure.
Sure. Which of those are to blame? But I did also send this warning letter to our attorney just to keep on file in case there are any future issues. And I told him I'm gonna keep covering him with paper as it relates to the landfill issue, just in case.
Yeah.
Future issues, so. But to Mr. Yoder, to your point, I will certainly have a conversation, Mr. Coleman, have a conversation with them about our concerns and the timing.
And one other thing,
Yeah.
it may just be me, but this was received on March 30th. Today is April 13th. Draper-Aden has benefited from their relationship with this county for a long, long time. I don't see why somebody from Draper-Aden isn't standing up at that microphone explaining to us what's going on. I don't know. Just seems to me that
Only thing I think, and I have no reason to believe this, but just an assumption, that if they were having lab issues, that maybe they have an internal contact with DEQ or whoever and told them, hey, you may be getting some, so I wonder if that may not be the situation. I mean, not that it justifies anything, but they work closely with them, they may have told them, hey, we're doing this to the lab, you guys, for our clients, you may be getting some, and this is all formality, perhaps.
the COVID situation, it was in full blast in last June. Yeah, I mean,
But still, I
yeah, I don't
if
know.
that was the case, they could have come and said something.
I think your point though is well put, that we are trying to get off the radar.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's really
And they were saying how good we were doing.
that's the part here.
And we
I
have
don't
one.
think that we're getting ready to get slammed with some new whatever, but it's like,
Yeah.
just, we want to shut up and go away,
Yeah.
It's like, black out against the hill turns yellow, I feel like now we're back to black again.
Yeah, right.
We-
Like the fable.
We were about to.
Like, I don't want DEQ to even know I'm here,
Because we had backed off in some areas.
Oh, yeah, they have even said to us at the last, yeah.
Already.
Yeah.
You're taking candles and everything.
I mean, I'm not trying to unfairly
Yeah.
ding them, but, I mean, come on.
Well, if I might follow up on that, so I also got a second letter from DEQ, dated April 2nd, what I wanted to share with you. Essentially, it said this is not a final review, but it does have interim measures, work plan, technical review, and it goes on for 6 pages. And it of course asks to schedule a conference call to walk through issues and potential modifications. So that is on the agenda for myself, Draper-Aden, and Cheryl to start talking through this. But again, I wanted to make you aware, and I will follow up once we have that convecation about
Did they
where
allude to
we
what
stand.
kind of modifications?
Yes, I was curious what's involved.
Well,
Oh, no. When I hear a well like that, that's not good.
I didn't know that we needed.
how about I'll reserve judgment until, it's long, and some of them, do suggest we might have to do some additional work. But I'd like to hear it doesn't really walk through more list what concerns are as opposed to how what mitigation needs to be.
I mean, I did read that we have to reseed in some places due to washing.
Well, that's
Yeah.
not a,
I mean, that's a modification.
well, yeah, but
We have
that's
to
not a
reseed.
worded something.
Exactly, I mean, if it's those kind of things, I'm not gonna worry as much.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, I get reseeding, we have very wet fall and winter, and a lot of people's grass got washed into places that they're gonna have these big patches.
Yeah.
But I think this will take a little bit more effort, so you will hear back from you on that. But again, just wanting to keep you alerted and
Good
that's
news
also
for the
been.
next meeting.
Yes, and I again shared that with our attorney, just to keep him in the loop. Since we're talking about all the good news related to solid waste, we did have notification, again, just let you know that there's been a concern raised with EPA about a green box site. And so nothing more has happened on that except for that they're gonna go look. And it is a site that Marcus looked at and felt like there is not an issue there. But nonetheless, since there was a concern raised, of course, the agency will look into it.
So can you give me a little more background on that? A concern was raised by a citizen and they went to the Environmental Protection Agency?
And that's, we just found out this morning. So,
And that sounds like sour grapes. It's basically what I know, that's what it sounds like.
So with all that, it feels like maybe we need to look at some solutions for several things related to solid waste. And so in general, once we kind of get through the budget process, I plan to kind of move the whole issue of solid waste. I know we've been talking a lot about green boxes and the trash side, and I'll go back to that, but to try to look a little bit more holistically at all of the issues related to public facilities and solid waste and landfill and more holistically as soon as we get you to the budget process. So.
We didn't talk about it.
Yeah, there's been, you know, on
I've
our
been
past,
having this since 1992.
Yeah, I'm sure.
well, we've had specific agenda items about this since the first of the year. Like to make that clear.
Yeah,
That there's, you know, specifically some sites in my district have been on the agenda specifically more than once.
yep.
I think it's been a major topic.
We all shared this.
At every meeting for a long time. But yes, since the first of the year, for sure.
Well, and so related to that is maybe an interim step. I wanted to chat with you about making a couple of changes pretty short term, or in the short term, and then look at a larger plan going forward. But the couple of things, one of which you have already requested that I look at, and so I met with Cheryl the other day, and the proposal is to move the hours temporarily, because I think I mentioned in the budget session, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The transfer station would be open to the public from 11 to 7.
Good.
And so that's the same number of hours it was open before, so it's not, should not be an increase in personnel, but it just shifts it from not being open at 8 in the morning to now not opening till 11 and then moving to 7.
So it's 8 to 4?
So currently it is
4:30, right?
8 to 4:30.
Well, they stopped taking refuge at Fort.
Yeah.
But you can drop off your recyclables still, can't you?
I'm not
No,
sure, I
right,
don't think the
Yeah,
public.
It's
Right,
4,
okay.
that's right, thank you for the.
It's 30 minutes before quitting time,
Right,
same
yeah.
thing has been on Saturday.
Right.
11:30, they stopped taking.
Right.
Yeah, so technically our public hours for purposes of DEQ have been 8 to 4, 5 days a week, and then 8 to 11:30 on Saturdays. So what DEQ will allow us to do, and they're waiting for my final offer on the Saturday hours, but I've already talked to them about temporarily, again, moving Tuesday and Thursday to 11 to 7. starting with Earth Day. Seemed like a good hook, which is April 22nd.
Right.
And that is a Thursday. So that'll be,
that works?
yeah. And then on Saturday, we would be moving to probably opening at 11 and staying open the same 3.5 hours, or at 12 and staying open at 3.5 hours. And so Cheryl's supposed to get back to me today with a final decision, or I'll just decide by the end of the day and let DEQ know. And as soon as we get our email back from DEQ,
You'll let us know.
I'll let you know, let these folks know, and we'll also, I've contacted Fins in hopes that you would allow us to make this change. So they said they can certainly make us a temporary sign. But long before Earth Day, he said they wouldn't have any problem with that, changing the hours. So we will be able to move forward with that.
And that still won't stop the driver, you know, our drivers has been coming in earlier, and that's just affecting the hours we're open to the public.
To the public, right.
Right, so like if he schedules, what did you say during the week, 11 to 7?
11 to 7. Right.
So if our drivers still got out at 9, that's still not gonna change for them.
I mean, they probably will have to shift some folks around, because someone will have to stay
Yeah.
an extra 3 hours.
But, well, that's what I'm saying, like, where now, I think some drivers come in at 6, they can switch and come in at 9 and still work it out, like they are right now.
Yeah. So that's our hope, and so what DEQ is allowing us to do is, we told them we have a green box problem, which is what I've communicated, and one of the reasons people list that they have challenges and put things in the green box is because the transfer station is not open, as you all have noted many times, during hours that folks who are working, or especially working on county, can get there. So we're making this change temporarily. Again, starting with April 22nd and going at least through May, maybe a little bit longer, depending again exactly what DEQ says. And then once we settle in on some final hours, we'll have to go through a full permitting process with them. But they're allowing us to kind of pilot some things before we set it in stone in a permit.
We just want to make sure Steve and Draper Aiden monitor this permit to make sure that the hours is the only thing that DEQ changes in it.
Well, it wouldn't be a change in permit now. It's just an email between myself and DEQ on this issue.
But if
But
you
to
do
your
a
point,
permanent one, then we want to
there
make sure they
will
don't.
likely be other things that DEQ has alluded that there's probably some other things that we'll have to address because it has not been reviewed or updated in quite some time.
Yeah, but
So, but that would have had to happen anyway. They informed me that was going to be on the list, so why not? So that's kind of where
but
we
you
are.
understand where I was
Yep.
coming from.
Yep. I don't know that
Not
that
the first time
sleeping,
dealing with them, so.
I don't know that sleeping dog was going to lie anyway.
Much
I guess is
longer,
what I'm
anyway.
saying.
Well, if we can get him a quilt and put him in the corner, we'll let him sleep a little bit longer anyway.
So I don't know if I need a formal consensus or motion on changing the hours, but I
That's
want to
up
make
to
sure.
the county.
That's actually the
But
thing.
I wanted to
That's
make sure I
within
have
our
your
purview.
support before we move
Yeah, I'm
on.
all, yep,
Okay,
thumbs up for me.
all right, so we
You
will
can decide all that is,
do that.
And that's just something I've been wanting to do for a
Absolutely,
long
we
time.
talked.
We have talked about it for a long
Sometimes.
time.
Yes.
Yeah,
I want to.
wait, yeah.
Yeah, I want to publicly say thank you for listening to us, because I feel like you've taken what we said and really, and what the public has said to us and taken it to heart and tried to come up with a solution, so.
And I also think that your focus about wanting to move forward with a complete organic kind of overall look at our solid waste is really important too, and that is also something this board has talked about, I mean, for at least 4 years. So, yeah, it's something that we really, I mean, I know we had just finished doing one in 2016, and I know we haven't updated, but, I mean, you know, we've got to look at solid waste, I'd say every, minimum.
I think the report in 19, if I might, did not anticipate the level of challenges that we have now. So we just need to look at where we are.
We kind of did, but, all right, it's all good. Thank you.
Well, related to that, I think the item that probably will require a vote, if you are amenable, is, again, using Earth Day as kind of a hook, talking about eliminating the fees, and Mr. Coleman brought up a good point with me earlier when we were chatting, so I will amend what I was suggesting based on his good suggestion. But to potentially reduce or eliminate the fees at the transfer station on Thursday, April 22nd, Earth Day, Friday, and Saturday. So just those 3 days. But again, to kind of encourage folks to bring them in. If you all said this is part of the challenge, bring them in.
On the tires.
So the concern that has been raised, of course, is that some people might show up with a whole lot of tires in particular. And given you all's knowledge of the county, do we want to cap how many tires you can bring in for free, or do we just want to encourage people, however many you got?
Well,
And we are aware there's at least one
suggestion
place that needs to
that
be cleaned
on by the 21st, we haul off the 999 we have in stock. Because that is our limit at one time.
Okay, fair enough.
So by then, we might, even if we have to schedule an additional run,
Yeah.
you may want to make sure that that run takes place at least by the 21st.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
walk in
Yeah, right.
and do a spot check.
And I believe we need
A limit?
some sort of limit on the tires, because I say,
I think it should be maybe considered something for, so many per household, or defining what household is, and then are they limited to automobile and small trailer tires, or are they including
Tractor.
Including tires.
Because I'm assuming those cost us more, I would think.
And also,
I'm all for getting them somewhere that's a better place, that's great.
are we talking about just limiting the waiving of the fees to households, or are we talking about businesses, or are we?
that's what I was getting ready to say. I think it should be limited to households.
Is that gonna clean up what we need cleaned up?
Well, I mean, we want more.
Start.
And I'm not gonna say any more than that, but you understand?
Yeah, I
I
understand.
think it's a good program to pilot, and we'll start, and we can expand it.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we have 5 or 3 days, a couple of times during the course of the year, maybe once a quarter.
Were you thinking of certain limitations, or do you have suggestions for us?
Well, I think the suggestion about at least starting with households is a good start. I am not aware of any particular business issues, although there might be some. It has really been much more about how we can reduce how much is going into the green boxes that really aren't supposed to be in the green boxes. So that was kind of the focus. So households, and probably a limitation potentially on the number of tires, based on some information that I received recently. But that's also kind of a policy question, or do you just want all that stuff moved no matter what? Or do you want to limit it to say no more than 10 tires
Per household?
per household? Because I can't imagine your personal use is much more than 10 old tires.
Because I know a couple.
City girl.
I was getting ready to say.
City girl.
City girl.
In my neighborhood, they buy old cars and strip them and resell them and all, they go after the tires. And I don't want to see them bring in a big truckload of
Right.
tires they want to get out there. Yeah.
If you use more than 10 tires in a year, you're always performing a business
Yeah.
of some sort.
Yeah.
Well, most tire places, when you go buy tires, you
You
get.
just get them, you pay the fee.
A lot of them offer, hey, if you just buy them yourself, we'll knock off.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's how
Yeah.
That's how we're at. You tell somebody $6 a tire, they'll save you. Or whatever it is.
They'll haul it on.
They'll haul it, take care of your potatoes in there.
They do work, well, I was gonna say, they do work on brush piles.
Yeah, Yeah, right.
Yeah, right after dark, nobody sees smoke, so.
Is 10
Yeah.
I guess I just, if you look at how, if you define a household, and you can go as far as you want on this, but if you have how many drivers in that household, so I would say 10 at least, probably.
Make it even a dozen?
Probably, maybe.
Yeah, that's
Just
kind of
'cause
where I was
if
going.
you have
Yeah,
Three people by
three cars, you got four.
Three cars, 4 tires each, yeah.
It's a start, you can bring more than that, you just have to pay the
Pay for the rest of them.
Your
Yeah,
first 12 are free.
yeah, that's right. I think the advertisement, that's a good point. You
Yeah,
include
first
that.
12.
Your 13th tire will be a normal fee.
Okay.
You can bring.
Bring us a dozen, you get free, and anything over
Cheaper
a
by the
dozen.
dozen.
Yeah, cheaper by the dozen. Bring us the dozen.
All right, so it would be to eliminate the fee for individuals, households, i.e. not business,
Right.
for those 3 days, April 22nd through 24th. And in terms of
12 tires.
tires, your first 12 are free.
Total, not 12 a day, total.
Total,
Total for the household.
okay.
No,
I'll make that motion.
always agree.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. That was for 12 tires.
What's some of them?
Over the course of the 3 days.
Right,
Right.
you can bring four,
Well, you bring all 12 at once.
or all 12 at once.
Bring 50 and pay the fee for that.
Yeah, bring 50 and pay
Look
for
at
it.
you, look at you with that tax.
38. Motion and a second, any other discussion?
All right. Mr. Yoder.
Yes.
Ms. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
All right. And so we'll do this for a temporary period of time, the changed hours, depending on what DEQ says, at least the end of May, and see how that goes. And then, as you know, in your current budget proposal, you have one more staff person out there. So that would start potentially in the summer. If that happens, then, we could potentially look at making more changes in this time. But appreciate that. Thank you.
What are the other requirements for DEQ for our hour changes? What's their rules on that?
Well, my understanding from speaking to our particular person for this is as long as we're doing this as a pilot to try to see what works best, they can send us an approval email and we can go from there. But once we've kind of settled on what the hours will eventually be, we will have to refile our permit. And there's probably some other updates they alluded to will have to be made anyway. And it's like $300 and some odd for a permit fee.
Well, see, our initial pilot is Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday.
Yes, sir.
And see, then our next pilot could be Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. That's how you tell which day the system works the best, so.
Well, I've
I'm
avoided
just covering
Wednesday
that
because
dog
it's
in the
church.
corner with a blanket, you know?
So, and how long did they give you any indication of how long our temporary hours pilot program can last?
I had initially suggested from Earth Day through May. And they said we could potentially go a little bit longer, so my request is for a little bit longer.
I would say,
She'll write back to me as soon as I give her the Saturday hours.
yeah, I would just see how long we have to temporarily try and gauge what it is we're looking at.
Then we engage Monday and Wednesday, or Monday and Friday against Tuesday and Thursday, and then that way, then we can set our, what works best.
Correct.
Yes, and we will, of course, I think we'll have to notify the business folks, because I did ask Cheryl, who is actually there at 8 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
And the answer is generally not much of anybody, as you would expect, but to the extent there are folks out there, it is business. So we'll make sure to let them
Yeah,
know.
our business and industries.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And school system too, I guess.
Well, I remember Waste Management used to make an early run for H&B because Waste Management ended up tag teaming our Floyd Fest. Kind of, it was all connected together. And that was early in the morning. The driver got here at like, I mean, he was at the gate at 8 a.m.
Waiting on them down.
Wait him on, yeah. Yep.
So, related to all this, as you all probably have seen, as you drive by the green boxes yourself, we have a lot of recyclables that are ending up in the green boxes themselves. So we'll, as part of looking at our overall situation, we'll be looking at how to improve people's aim. And
Well, cardboard in particular really always has bothered me, that there's a cardboard container at almost every single green box site.
But they're in the dump.
And they're in the dump.
Yep.
I had asked people as they're getting ready to dump, please put the cardboard there.
Yep. And
I wish they would rethink sliding these together, because man, people would call me on that.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have to.
I think we're going, where there's 6, I think we're gonna have to offset or something where, and the one down on Route 8 really, when it pushed up against the brush pile, there's only one dumpster door that they can open.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I will say, though, that I was at Goose Creek last night. It appeared that they had been emptied, but I want to applaud the Goose Creek section of the county because all of the doors were still closed
closed.
on all of their dumpsters. So
Personal experience.
that's you know, that's right on our line between our two. And I know Little River District folks use it, and Locust Grove use it. So we appreciate everybody closing the doors on them.
One of the problems I see with them running together and then people not strong enough for them over the top or whatever, they set it down.
Yeah.
Then if the buyers come through, they tear the bag up.
It's already late there for them, you know.
And then the way the
Buffet
wind's been
style.
blowing, you know, it's everywhere.
While we were on solid waste, I did have one suggestion, and I can't remember if I relayed it on to you or not. It was suggested to me up here as you're going into the landfill, that we reconfigure those gates. In other words, move them down the hill and put a set of gates that go to the maintenance area, and actually move those dumpsters off of the road and move them down inside the facility.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because people are parking there and they're parking in the road.
Yeah, there's nowhere to pull over, right.
Yeah, it's not like some of the other side. You can pull over up next to where you enter the animal shelter.
Right.
And I generally pull in down at the other one when somebody's sitting there.
Right.
You really the brush beats your vehicle terribly bad and you still can't get all the way out of the road.
No, you really
Just
can't
something
do
to
that.
look at and see. It was a suggestion, and I said I would bring it up, and I've done my part, so.
okay.
It may not end up being feasible. It gets it off the road there.
Fair enough.
I think I laid in on you there a minute ago. You was going to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just moving on to the next item.
Oh.
So,
I have a
we're
few
trying to
things.
be aware of what time it is, and I know we have a couple more things to do.
Are you still on solid waste or are you moving on?
I was gonna move on, but we can stay here.
I just have a couple things. Most of which I communicated already to you via email, but if we could, if you could have a conversation about, until the new site gets completed, trying to maybe increase the pickup in addition to the email that I received yesterday. I also received a phone call about the extra trash that's being at several different locations. And residents are finding them full, so until we get that relief with the new site, if they could work it in their schedule to make an extra trip to pick that up, maybe look at the frequency with the increased trash load on those sites.
Is there room at those sites to add another box?
I don't think so. I've asked about one in particular, and the landowner is content with the amount that's there. So
Keep them content if you can.
Well,
Yeah, content's great.
this is what I'm saying. The new site, it looks to be progressing well. There's been a few warranted concerns recently raised that I've been working with since late Friday, and involved. Dr. Millsap has been very efficient along with Mr. Bolt. I think we do need to, it was mentioned before a couple of meetings ago about fencing. We've had discussions about that, if we could check and see where that is, and I think that would help some situations. Most certainly, if we can move that to the forefront and let the board make a decision of how much we can invest in these sites.
Is that on this particular
This
site?
particular site, the
And then
plant,
you're saying on all of our sites?
I think we need to look at it.
Right.
But in particular with this conversation, this
Okay.
one, the property owner is going to plant some screening material there in the fall of the year. Mr. Bolt suggested maybe we would need to work with him and maybe try to add some additional material for erosion, just really going over the top and covering all of our bases. So
Right.
that may be a suggestion. And I apologize to the board. I thought that I had covered all in excess of my basis. My steps and, our attorney and things are going well. They are.
Right.
Just some things that I was led to believe were taken care of, maybe not been as what I thought they should have been. So and that's no reflection of anybody here. So just wanted to be mindful of that with you guys, because you were been fully supportive of this, and I appreciate that. So just don't want there to be any surprises. Move forward.
Yep.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Don't they make like a fencing, like a metal fencing, but that also has some type of, like air goes through it, but you want it, it's hard to see, like it's.
Yeah, screening,
So
yeah.
it's, if I think what you're talking about, it has like green strips.
Yeah.
I think it slides down through it.
Well, it's that, and they also have stuff that's like a micro mesh sort of netting as well. There's a couple of different.
Yeah, the one I'm thinking of is like fiberglass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking of.
But
Yeah.
that's primarily, I've seen in chain link fencing.
Yeah.
Right.
But and it really would stop everything.
It does.
Let some air to get to
And then
it.
let the air get to it.
Absolutely.
I think that's what, I mean, even if it costs a little more, that's what I would consider, because I think it would kind of give some site protection, just the view shed. Maybe would be a
Sure,
little better,
absolutely.
and would catch more trash. And would last a long time versus, my only fear of wood is that, 15 years from now.
What's it
What's it do there?
It's gonna look bad unless we.
And you do have to replace those fiberglass strips after a while too. I mean, you really do. They don't last forever, although the technology has increased.
What made me think about the wood was, years ago, we had all our recycling buildings were made out of wood instead of metal.
Right.
And then we had one year where we went out and had a lot of volunteers paint a lot of them, because I was involved in that. And so I mean, they were getting really rough look. Even though the wood was still there, it's just,
Right.
it had degraded to the point it looked kind of rough. So, just some options. But I think fencing, I mean,
Part of our,
it's keeping trash. I've heard it from several in my district that keeping that trash off of the adjoining property is very concerning. Yeah.
We received an email yesterday that has me a little nervous, I guess. We really need,
yep,
we need to focus on this county-wide for sure.
yep, yeah,
When
well,
we
part
find
of it,
ourselves in, Joe's experiencing it now and, working through it.
it's part of the overall, I think, that
Yeah.
plan that we just talked about a little while ago.
I have one other idea that, and we'll relates to solid waste. I'll be brief. I don't have the answers for it. I'm good with sometimes ideas, but not sure how to implement them, but that's why we're at this table. There's been some conversation about the trash around the sites. I wonder if, with the amount of volunteers that we have in this county, if the county could pilot a program, facilitate a program about cleaning up around these sites. I'm sure there's people in this community that would love to do that. And if there was just an energy or a a forefront idea to do that. I'm not sure about the liability and as far as, on other people's property as well, but just a thought.
Well, see, we have the green and clean every spring. And one thing I was thinking, kind of along those same lines, and you're going even further, I was thinking maybe if we had a quarterly, concentrating around the green boxes, but if, or some of these groups that might just do it on a weekly basis.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, maybe a monthly county-sponsored, spearheaded group of volunteers.
We provide them whatever
They
they
meet,
need.
we give them everything they need, and there's a lot of folks in our community, and there's a lot of good out there. So people are just looking for an opportunity, where can they serve? And if it's public, and it's made aware, and it's sponsored, and all they gotta do is show up, who knows?
Instead of adopt a highway, adopt a green box.
Adopt a green box. Put them all,
Off the green box site,
put them
yeah.
all on rotation, and
Yep.
keep them clean. Once a month. Just a thought.
And in between, still we'll use the work release like
As
we
much
are
as we
now.
can.
Well, you might be able to use, what I was thinking was you might be able to use this new, I don't know the terminology, where you can work off your debt.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Right.
That may be an avenue if you set something up.
That's true. That's a good idea. That's a very good idea.
And the other thing too, not just around our green boxes, but I have had people come to me and say, the litter problem,
It's increased.
it has increased more, and it was on a decrease, and then all of a sudden it's back to increasing. And
It's a lot like it was years ago.
yeah, when we were little, yeah, so maybe, maybe that's part of our discussions with the green boxes of recycling, litter, and how we keep things clean. Yeah.
Great.
Get fired up about it.
Yeah, we get fired up about solid waste, about garbage.
Okay, thank you. Well, I appreciate all those ideas and suggestions, and we'll follow up on those, and especially as once we kind of finish the budget process, hopefully I'll be able to move over to a whole
Solid
list.
waste summit.
But thank you for what you've been approved for us to do so far. I'm sure the remaining things that I have on here actually would be, just as a side note, I guess a courtesy report from me. So since we had our last meeting like this, I wanted to let you all know that I've been reaching out to a lot of our partner people and meeting with them and about a variety of things. And so my list since our last meeting, I think, has been, of course, I met with the folks that work for the county, or most of them already, and division directors and things. But I've been out to talk with Becky at the Arts Center. Pat and I from tourism met on Friday at the country store, had lunch. Good lunch, by the way. And I've also gone over and met with John at the chamber, and went up to Blacksburg and met with the folks at Upward for regional economic development work. My first stop was Kevin Bird. I think I mentioned that to you all before. And I've also been up to talk to Kareem, who is our regional director for the library program. So I know you all had asked me to work on outreach, so that's kind of been my most recent list. So that's just informational.
And that's onward.
Onward, sorry. Onward.
That's okay.
Onward.
Onward, and
They were
upward.
very, very helpful. Yes, thank you. They were very, very helpful. We had some good, excellent conversations. And in fact, I think it was yesterday, Pat was meeting with some of their staff. They have an internship program with folks that are, if you're interning in the New River Valley, your company can sign you up for this program through Onward. And so this year they're going to cap it at 40, and they're going to come up to Floyd for a day. And so she was meeting with some folks and kind of working through what that agenda would be. So the hope behind that, of course, is to encourage these folks once they graduate to stay in the region and particularly stay in our area. We have two related items of business that I know of, Mr. Chair, that would fall under new business that are not on here. One is an update on the tourism effort, and the second is, I think we're trying to make that closed session item based on that is private business issue. So I think if that's all right to add those to the agenda as new business. Yes.
And I just have one other item of business, if we could, before we go into close. We are, our clinics for the vaccinations have been going very well. I've been at most of them, and we are reaching a point where the Ecos Village Event Center has now started opening up again and booking. So we have been asked for our clinic on the 24th if we could pay a small fee to them. They have allowed us to do 8 clinics for free and utilize their facilities, their bathrooms, and all we've done is clean them through Fenwick Cleaning. So we need to, they have asked us for a fee of $200, and I would ask the board if the nominal fee of $200 could come out of our CARES funds to pay for that.
Won't have a problem with it.
Okay, I just wanted to, we never.
I mean, it's the ideal place to do this, so, and they have been generous so far.
Absolutely.
I don't have a problem if we,
That's quite a reduction too for the rental of the
yeah, do we need
facilities.
to do more than one,
We
or?
might. We've got it free up through the 17th, but after the 17th, they're making it available to the public. And we would like to actually kind of rent it as many weeks as we can through the duration until we don't need it anymore.
The only problem is they are quickly
quickly
renting, and so we wanted to,
So this Saturday,
this Saturday we have it,
we
and they
have,
have Saturday the 24th, and then they have the weekend of May 22nd available.
does that coincide with the pharmacy?
She's trying to get it every weekend we can.
But do those, I know sometimes they do Sunday, sometimes they do Saturday. Does 24th fit into their
Yes.
schedule?
Yes.
Then I don't.
Well, I have a question on that. After school is out, why couldn't we do it at one of the schools?
We talked to Dr. Wheeler, and he was more than willing for us to do it. Floyd Elementary does not have good traffic flow.
Right.
The high school is not good right now with all the construction going on.
Right.
Yeah.
They did say we could use Willis Elementary, and I talked to or have been emailing back and forth with the principal and the secretary, and they said we could use the new gym. Portia would prefer to have it at the Echo Center if possible, one, just because of the convenience to being downtown,
Sure.
our familiarity with using it.
And it's a central
It's central.
county location.
The way they plan to use it, we have to partition the Willis Elementary gym. I mean, we could make it work, but it wasn't first choice.
It's a lot of work to make
It
it
just
work.
seems like if they're gonna open up to the public for a cost, we may not have an option here pretty quickly.
The other idea that's been floated is having a drive-through at Chantilly Farm. And we're exploring that possibility right
For
now.
the weekend of, the weekend in May. And then I had thought maybe if we could do a Friday clinic, perhaps up at the rec center, just kind of a drive-through at the rec center. But we have to check to see what is going on with the fields and stuff, but it should.
Weekends are very busy.
Well, I know weekends, I said Friday, like if we could do
A
it.
lot of times they start Friday night, so.
Yeah, I know, I don't know what
One
the.
thing I talked about too, was mentioned, I think, was that and of course, it's a lot of working out, but like if you had it from 5 to 9
At
one
night.
evening during the week, but that would be totally up to the pharmacy as to how they, that might not work for them.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking we could still use the Eagle Village during the week if we had to, but it's gonna limit the number you give
Yeah.
drastically.
Well, at some point, the other thing I want to know how long, much longer we'll go, then we of people get vaccinations at $200 a pop, eventually
That's
a lot.
Floyd, the last I heard, Floyd County had 7,500, the last dashboard we got. We gave out, what, about 500 vaccinations?
500 on Sunday.
So that's up to 8, except at least 100 of them were not from Floyd County that we
Yeah,
know
because
of.
the dashboard opened us up to others coming in, which was fine. I
And
mean,
there's people from Floyd going other places.
and they have, yeah. But
So we're up to almost
8,000.
8,000.
Yeah, but.
Is that shots or is that total?
8,000 shots.
Shots, that doesn't,
Although
Jeez.
a lot of them are second doses and a lot of them are J&J.
I can go in and check
So
as
if
of
the
yesterday.
JJ
Hold
being
on.
closed now, that's gonna double the amount of times
Yeah.
people are coming.
Yes.
So,
Although there is some talk about delaying, I was saying to Cindy earlier, I read this morning, eating my oatmeal, that there's some talk about the shots, the second shots being delayed a little bit so everybody can get a first dose. But I don't know where that's gonna come down.
yeah, they got a lot to figure out on that. Because if you get too far outside of the window,
I know.
you gotta go through the
Right.
whole
what's
thing
this, is
again.
that, yeah.
Yeah, the efficacy drops and then, then we're back
And
to
I
square
think I saw
one.
where they said 21% of the state had been fully vaccinated.
Yeah,
So if you kind of look at that number, you know,
yeah.
The update I got yesterday said that we had 8,109 people.
Fantastic.
that had had at least one shot.
Let's get back to the clinic sites. When and where possible, I'll be clear about that, if it's if possible. I think it would be good to have one, maybe at Willis Elementary, Check Elementary, maybe at least one time, to try to get to outlying parts of the county for maybe elderly community or people that have difficulty trying to get transportation, maybe just once, if possible and where possible. I don't know the logistics behind it. It may not be very economical to do that, I don't know.
Well, if we do it once and we're doing the Moderna, we're really doing it at each one of those
Twice,
places
right,
twice.
sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
be twice at each place, I think.
But I think at this point, people are willing to.
Yeah, I think that's
I think
that's
the
true.
majority of the elderly people that have wanted it have already gotten it, from what I've
Or at
heard.
least got the first one.
As of yesterday, here is, like you said, Joe, vaccine doses administered is 8,182. People with at least one vaccine is 5,109. Fully vaccinated individuals are 3,934.
Here in Floyd.
Here in Floyd, just Floyd.
Well, that's,
Or the third of it.
Being fully
But
vaccinated.
that's not counting, there's children that wouldn't be able to get it. So
right. You
Right.
gotta do-
So we're at 40-45%.
Probably.
Give or take.
Mm-hmm,
So if you
Which is
think there's
good.
a percentage that won't get it, we're over 50% of the people that want
absolutely,
to have a vaccine have gotten it.
absolutely.
Good progress.
Mhm.
I guess back to the point, keep things rolling for this month, I would agree to do the 200.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it said, yeah.
Then we can figure it out after that.
But if we were gonna have, let's say we were gonna have 30 or 40 more times, I mean, I don't know, it all depends, I don't know how long you're gonna go, because there's gonna continue to be people that wanna get it as you.
I hope eventually it gets to the point where people are going to their local pharmacy, CVS, or try your health plan to their local doctor. I hope that at some point soon we're ending all these
I was
clinics.
just trying to get us through this one.
Yeah, and I don't really think
I
we
wouldn't
need to be going to the
promote doing
schools unless we have to.
Right, that's kinda how I
I
feel.
mean, once kids are out, then that's different, but I don't really wanna pack a bunch of people in there.
Yeah.
Well, then have kids, I mean, even
Kids
in
coming the
Cleveland,
next
you're
day.
still,
But then the question begs, do we go to the event center and say, we're gonna want one of these dates in June, or 2 dates in June, can we have 2 dates in July? At least to get us out that far, that's what I'm wondering. I mean,
They'll
let's,
start filling up for those. I mean, those are prime weddings.
well, most people, if they're having a wedding, they've already,
well, the event center, exactly where would they, or I mean, down at Chantilly, where exactly would they be administering?
What they've described to me, we're talking about going out later this week to actually look at
Right.
it, is as you drive in, we have the table, and give them the forms, and then they would go up one of the routes, one of the drive
Like
routes.
where the barbecue place is, like where Bootleg Barbecue has its
And they
cuts,
would be administered the shot in the car.
In the vehicle.
and then they
And then they
go
would
around the
around
loop.
and sit and wait,
Parking lot.
and then they'd be.
Weather impact that.
Well, it would, we'd be under tents.
Well, you could do it before it rained, probably.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're getting into the rainy season,
I know.
so.
No, it's getting ready to start cutting hay,
Yeah.
it's gonna be dry, sunny.
Right.
I feel Lauren's hand coming over here.
You got a week or two in May, after that, it's all in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at the long range forecast.
Well, I was just saying,
I haven't wanted to.
because I couldn't see them doing it, then taking people down to the building where they do the quilt show.
And the building is not available to.
Not an
I was gonna
option.
say, there's no way that would work either,
Yep,
so.
not an option.
So massive tent, we may have to get, didn't one of the realtors used to have them giant tents?
Yeah, we sold it.
No, you wouldn't need a huge tent if you had a building.
Right.
There's a small building up there.
The buildings are not available.
No,
Building's
not
not
available.
available, that's why.
I'm not sure that the drive-through is an option. I don't know. We're just gonna have to see. We're just.
It would be weather related, I would think.
Sorry, I didn't mean it to go too long. I know it is, I know.
We get a consensus on the $200.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, we do.
On the 24th,
24th?
yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm asking for is beyond that. I'm asking for permission to, if there are available dates in May, that I go ahead and with Parker coordinate the dates.
And June and July.
And
I'd say at least go to May and then see what the,
so,
Yeah.
some of the other school, where we're at.
That was my consensus.
That's what I.
And take care of April and May,
yeah.
and then figure out after that. When is school out?
May
Yeah,
20.
14.
Before June,
Yeah. Yeah, 14th, I think graduation was graduation. I haven't. So,
What do we need for closed session?
That's what I was getting ready to ask Dr. Millsap.
Okay, we could do that, and if I might, just, real quick on the tourism stuff, because there's a meeting this week, so I don't want you all to be surprised, and then we can go to closed session. And I've called our representatives on the TDC already, and before we met, so, as you heard a moment ago, I met individually with the chamber and the town manager and with Pat, and then yesterday the four of us met together and came up with.
That was Pat, you, John, and Kayla. Okay.
Yes, we met together at town hall yesterday, and at the very end, Mr. Patton came in as well. And so we came up with what those of you who are on the TDC will see in your packet from the 4 of us. Is kind of, it's not a new MOU. We wanted to present kind of what this is the staff's thought on what should be included in a bullet point type for consideration by both you all as one of the funding bodies, the town is a funding body, the chamber is a partner, and also the TDC. And we're focused just on pretty much the position of tourist director and how it's funded and those kind of things, not the overall what direction should tourism go in the region or in the area, none of that. And so if you'd like, I can walk through some of those things that will be in the packet. So some of the things would include, again, our recommendation, don't know what everybody's decision will be. The fiscal agent would be responsible for personnel, benefits, workers' comp, unemployment, and including such items as phone, credit card, website, those kind of things as it relates to their larger contracts. So that all goes as kind of one bucket together.
So the existing website would be controlled by the fiscal agent.
Well, at least payment for it. So that was really all about money, not necessarily. So this is about money and staff.
But technically, they would own that website, I'm assuming. That's one thing I thought about,
Yeah.
that there probably needs to be someone who actually technically owns that website, rather than the TDC.
Yeah, I'm not sure, that's a good question, Mr. Jeter, I'm not sure who technically owns the website.
What I would hate to see is if the chamber said, no, we need to put this on the website. You know, what I'm saying, it could get kind of confusing.
Yeah.
The buck needs to stop somewhere, you know, who actually controls the content on that website.
Well, that's next. Okay, so this was the money part. Sorry.
You said website,
Which is
Netflix.
the money part, which is right now, town and county, and now we're just creating the fiscal agent to be more responsive.
So, yes, so we're kind of saying these are the things that the group that's designated to be the fiscal
Gotcha.
agent would have responsibility to do. And so the very next item, kind of to your point, is the fiscal agent would either be the town or the county. We felt like that choice should set with the elected folks, to be determined by the Board of Supervisors and Town Council. And just, there's more to it, so it wouldn't ever just be owned by the town or the county. This is really all just about like where their benefits come from, who approves leave, things like that. So more just basic employee stuff. That they would report administrative items such as leaves, forms, hours, etc. to the fiscal agent. Continuation of the visitor center MOU and tourism office requirement that the visitor center and the tourism office be together, co-located. They all feel like that's really important. The fiscal agent shall provide space for historic document storage, marketing and promotional materials, and outdoor display booths. So wherever that stuff, it goes wherever they are. So if they're with us or if they're with the town, it goes with them. And operations board. So this is a concept that we drew out of how Montgomery County structures theirs. They have an operations board, which is made up of the county administrator, the town manager, and the chamber executive director. And they will serve as the day-to-day guidance for the tourism director position. And we would do that together.
Is the chamber putting money into this position, or do they get a say without financing?
So in terms of, at least in me, for the current upcoming year, the recommendation is that the funding streams remain the same as they are now. So the actual hard dollars come in from the town and the county. But there is also a recognition of how much in-kind contribution comes in from the business community. And so part of what would be expected of the tourism director is to keep track of how much that is. And so that would be also shown in the overall budget. So to recognize that this extra, in-kind funding is coming in, even though it's not a straight-up dollar amount.
Now, would the chamber's part say be leaving the person in their office, using their office or their facilities?
Well, so there is rent paid to the chamber. It's $200 a month for that office.
So that's not an in-kind service.
No, but it's things like when somebody comes in, we've been really fortunate to get a lot of free publicity in some of these magazines. Somebody comes and writes, well, then they get to stay for free, and that's an in-kind contribution and some of those kind of things.
For individual business.
Well, I guess the argument that Pat would make if she were here is that, those are the things that they put up that make it possible to get the effectively free advertising.
The individual business
Yes,
puts up,
yes,
not the chamber, the individual business.
that is correct. You
So,
are correct.
I mean, on a board of operations board, I mean, wouldn't the chamber still meet as part of the Tourism Development Council?
Yes, so then we get further. So we kind of were thinking of a 4-level structure essentially. So you have your tourism director, and then kind of the You know, we would meet, us operations group, so the three of us plus the tourism director would meet, say, every month or something like that, and really do the kind of operations day to day. This is the direction. The Tourism Development Council would still exist, and that's, of course, you have 2 members with the county, 2 with the town, and just 1 from the chamber in that. And that group would be charged with driving the strategic direction overall. So how are we doing against the strategic plan, which is also part of the recommendation.
And that makes sense for where the chamber should be.
So that was kind of, and I guess part of the chamber part still being on the operations is recognizing that they run the visitor service center. And so they might have input in the day-to-day because, you know, they're seeing what the foot traffic is through the visitor service center and those kind of things. Okay. The TDC would continue to be a board made up of town council, board of supervisors, and a chamber board member that provides strategic direction to tourism, meeting at least quarterly. The work of the tourism director is driven by a multi-year strategic plan that is aligned with the Virginia Tourism Drive Tourism Program for FY 2022. That allows us to be able to use Virginia tourism to facilitate strategic planning at their cost, not our cost. And allows us to kind of hook into several other programs with them by doing that. TDC will create bylaws for themselves for meeting dates, meeting requirements, and terms of service. Tourism would be funded the same as the current agreement for FY 22, and any future increases would be determined as a result of the strategic planning efforts and future revenues. And then we also noted the final one is the Tourism Advisory Board is an important asset to the TDC and the Tourism Director. This advisory board should remain and continue to be made up of leaders in tourism sector businesses. So those were kind of the talking points that are in the packet that was delivered, again, from a staff perspective, the 4 staff folks. So you guys will see this in your packet. I think Mike probably already brought them by. He brought mine by yesterday. So
You don't have the tourism committee.
I don't know why the tourism director is in the middle of this, because we each serve, I mean, it should be this board and town council.
That's right.
That's,
That's,
it's about to drive me crazy how Mike is just trying to control the conversation.
that's where I'm coming from. And could you repeat the part, I'm sorry, I don't have a copy, but
yes.
And if you're looking for some kind of decision, I would like a copy before we leave today, if we have to make a decision. Could you reread that part about the future funding?
That any future increase, so these are just, again, kind of talking points, and then to get some feedback, and then we go from there. But in terms of what we're trying to suggest is this year, financially, it'd be pretty much structured the same as it's
I'm talking about
always
the
been.
future one that you read.
So the follow-up thought to that, and we'll all be there, well, I can commit, I'll be there tomorrow night if these questions come up. But as part of the strategic planning effort, there is a possibility when this happens, which would include, you know, you all, the town, and the various folks in the community that are tied to tourism. If something comes out of that that suggests something different or something more, that's how that process would start. But right now, we're not suggesting any changes to the financial structure.
Well, I understand it, but I thought you said something in the future funding would be based on
what recommendations out of the strategic plan, but ultimately still comes back to you all in the town to decide your budget.
Future revenues.
Yeah, it says basically future revenues would be based on, so if our revenue on, like we primarily, it comes out of our lodging tax, so if our revenues go up, then potentially.
we could potentially raise it. If revenues go down, then it could go the other way. That was the point I wanted to get across the table.
Right.
It doesn't always go up just because of wording of something.
Right.
Right. But essentially, the suggestion from the staff is to leave it the same for now, and if something
So the
else comes out
tourism
later.
committee's gonna look at this and make some kind of recommendation?
We've got a presentation tomorrow night. I don't know why we're doing it. I don't understand why we're doing it. Before Mike Patton became the chairperson of this committee, I had said that the county administrator and the town manager needed to meet and talk things over, and then it needed to be brought back to this board and the town council, and we should all meet. Now we've got this, I don't know what we've got, but
Well,
we've got,
TDC doesn't get to make the decision.
right,
I mean, that's
TDC doesn't
it's
make,
our decision, it's town council's decision.
Well, I understand, and I don't have a problem having their opinion or their input. But I thought that as close as we're getting to the deadline, that this is something the town and county needs to be knocking heads on.
and this is just a,
I mean, it's fine, they can, Mike can
An
talk about it.
appeasement,
I don't know. But
I mean, let's call it what it is.
you don't want me to call it.
Well, it's an appeasement, that's the best we can do at this table right now. Now, we'll go out back and we can really, we call it what it is. But,
I appreciate the hard work that you've done on it. The only part in there that I have any heartburn on is just, I think whoever this agent is needs to have a certain amount of control because it is their employee. So if it is the town, let's just for.
well, is there any recommendation on that yet? Between you and Kayla, or?
So what the staff's opinion is, Kayla and I's joint opinion is, I will say, is that we both feel like we could house it with ourselves. So I feel like we could do it, Kayla feels like they could do
Either
it,
one.
and either one, and we both feel like we would be okay with the other one doing it. So that's
Okay.
why we're saying
Okay.
that needs to be a decision amongst the elected folks.
Right.
Well,
But we are
that needs to
confident
be a
either one.
decision.
Right, but as far as sports.
Right,
right.
Well, I just wanted to know if y'all got that far along.
Yes.
I wasn't
yes.
trying to put you
Yeah.
or her on the
No,
spot.
no. We've
So-
had really very positive conversations with, candidly, all four of us together. I think it's worked really well. And we kind of all came to these very similar thoughts. And part of the reason we were continuing to hold on to having a TDC structure of some type is to make sure that there is a forum that includes both the town and the county. And, some folks thought the other, I know people have other opinions about the third part, but again,
No,
that's up
that's
to you all.
fine. Yeah.
No, I think the
But-
chamber should be involved in that. part.
Yeah, so that way, it's not owned, because I think there's always people who will be concerned that it's owned too much by one or another, but if the operations includes, Kayla and I and John is the current holders of the seats, and then if the TDC is the one that sets the directions, that includes elected officials from both the town and the county, then that kind of keeps it as a way for everybody to have their opportunity to make sure that everybody is fully served by the tourism.
I'm gonna say this here in open session, because I want this to be understood. As an operations board that's being looked at as something in Montgomery County, it's a great example. Floyd County is not Montgomery County. And I know everybody knows that, but I just wanted to say that. I also think that the county administrator and the town manager are the people of that operations board. I think the Chamber of Commerce executive director, in terms of having day-to-day guidance for the tourism director position, I believe that the chamber should be in the tourism council's position. I don't see the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce
In the day-to-day.
in the day-to-day between the county administrator and the town manager where the money is coming from. Just because we want to have the visitor center and the office, no, I don't see where we make that jump. I don't see where we make that jump. And that's just me. I see Justin shaking his head.
I look at it from an employee standpoint.
Right.
You've got three bosses. I mean, this is like, if this this initiative was prefaced in somewhat about the care of the physician. If I remember what you said, Mr. Hughes.
Absolutely.
And with that in mind, it's like, you walk in,
The
I
less
feel like,
process, the better.
you
You need a
to
clerk,
me,
you need a clerk magistrate.
to me,
Mayor
it's,
Kenneth
yeah, I mean, one would be ideal, just, and I
Well,
know
that's what I was-
And if we move forward this year with the, being a joint, still the joint effort, then the administrator and the town manager are at that tier.
Right. And then you talk to the chamber executive director. You can have them in, you can communicate to them, but
it's just a little insulation and insurance on behalf
Correct.
of the employee, in my opinion, to have the representatives of the local government bodies.
Correct.
Be the number one.
on the governing board.
Yeah,
I know.
And what I think we really need to be careful, what we really need to be careful about too is, you know, if you have an employee, having someone who's definitely their boss. So if it was housed within the town, then the town definitely needs to, it's technically their employees, so they would definitely need, if like, for example, discipline needs to happen, the town manager needs to have the authority to make that happen, because it's their employee and. it's
Same thing with us.
Same thing with us, so I mean, that employee reflects on the town, you know, so it's,
Well, the way I would look at it with that joint effort, let's say it was an employee of the town, well, then that kind of puts you as an advisor with the town manager.
This is just,
Hmm.
go ahead, I was talking to myself. Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm talking about the relationship between the town manager and the county administrator. The town manager would be the one administering, but you would have an advisorship with the town manager. If it was on the county side, you would be taking the lead, but you would also maybe seek advice from the town manager as well to keep both bodies represented. But ultimately, it would fall under your heading if it's county, or if it was the town, it would fall under the town's heading for what Lauren's talking about.
Well, and if I might, Mr. Chair, so I think kind of where we were thinking is, we feel like whether it's, you know, the three of us or the two of us, that we get along well enough that we can do this. There's a history of, before me, but still a history of, it was Ladina and Carla and Kayla and some other folks, right, and Pat, that kind of made up a group that set some overall direction. And so we feel like that we can do that if it were sitting at the town, as an example. I think part of the reason we suggested kind of having it, the 2-3 people, is that really that way we can ensure and feel responsible to you all, as, in my case, again, if it's at the town, I can say for sure, yes, I know that the county's being represented and I've bought off on the direction and all of that. But we feel like we can really do that pretty adequately amongst ourselves. I hear what you're saying, Mr. Coleman, about having one boss. And I think for like the, you know, when can I take vacation? What do I do with the circumstance kind of thing? It really does end up whichever place. But we were very conscious of the fact that we wanted both elected bodies to feel like they knew their agenda was going to get moved forward and not just
On the
other
governing
sections.
board,
And
by having that
they're
governing
included.
board. Yes,
They're included, both sides.
yeah, the town and the
Well, I was
county
trying to
on that
figure out how
governing
to
board,
do it.
right, right.
That's your staff recommendation. Y'all, you know, can feel their, but that's what we put together. And so, Kayla was going to share this list. You know, they meet on Wednesday, Thursday. That's right. And it's going to be
Council.
shared with the TSN and the TDC packet. And I think John was going to talk to his board too. So that's kind of what your staff recommendation is.
I think it needs to be 2 people now.
Instead of 3.
2,
I'm two with the county.
I'd rather be 1, but.
Yeah.
so you're saying 2 with the county?
We were dancing around and I'm going.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get your opinions, because I gotta go back, Lauren and I have to go back.
Well, all you're looking for right now is a consensus, isn't it?
I would like to know, yeah. I would like
It's
to
by
know.
consensus.
Yeah, by
Because
consensus.
like I said, I'd like to see a document before I vote on it.
I'm just,
Yeah, I'm not asking, you might be, but I'm not asking for a vote. I'm informing you of the staff recommendation, and we wanted you to hear about it before you saw something with my name on it tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's my position.
I can agree to that.
what is that, two in one, and two in here? Okay.
Seems like from the onset to now, that's the one thing that's like concerning, everywhere, but I mean, so I'm just going to read it.
Well, that's why you guys get paid the big bucks.
Yeah.
So do you wanna see the entire thing, or do you wanna just see the, I don't think this is a project. You guys came up with this working document, right?
Well, just wait, we're just doing a consensus right
I know,
now.
but did you wanna see this?
Well, she'll
Yeah.
give us a
Yeah,
copy.
we gotta show me.
We gotta wait till after tomorrow night and any changes is made.
This is what it looks.
Don't choke now, don't choke.
I just feel like I'm gonna spend 2 hours listening to opinions tomorrow night when the opinions need to be coming from this board.
Correct. And
I
it's all about-
understand that, but I'm just saying, well, that's the process at the moment.
Give me my recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if the
Very
town,
much.
I'll say this, I agree with that, but I'm in a position, if the town really wants it, I don't have a problem with that either. But for right now, to get a consensus here, I think we can lay that out on the table.
We'll be glad to take it.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's the way I think we could
we're getting
lay it out there. We'll be happy to take it.
Correct.
If that's what they want. That's two of us, so.
No, I agree.
No, that's,
But the day-to-day operations needs to be no more than 2 people.
Jerry wanted to see it right
Yeah, I think it should be one. I could live with 2,
Well, that's,
because this is a,
well, I was gonna see the whole document, whenever it gets put back.
because
I don't think
keep in
this
mind,
will
we wouldn't have to sign a 5-year deal. I mean, you could do a 1 or 2 year deal and see how it works, and that's just an issue.
Bring it back up, but, yeah.
I do think the TDC needs to get out of the day-to-day operation business.
They need to be in the long vision.
We need to be in strategically saying,
Correct.
we need to be pushing more of this type of tourism, whatever.
Are we leaving this sector behind? What can we do to bring it
Well, then I
forward?
don't need to be going in and saying to the tourism director, okay, what did you do on Thursday?
Yeah.
You should have done that. We don't need to get into
That's
that.
not-
TDC is not good.
That needs to be some, that's the same thing I thought was right. When you had part-time people, and we're just part-time, you can't oversee somebody the same way that the town manager or
Right.
the administrator can. So that's where their role needs to be, and we just need to be more of a strategic oversight.
Right. Well, that's what that committee should be.
That's what we should have done, yeah.
You got your consensus.
Yep, I got it.
That was a long time.
Well, that didn't take but an hour, so. Are we breaking for lunch now?
I think we have to
Well,
go
we
and
have the one closed session item, and also if anybody has any, I don't know if you wanted us, Chair, to do board member time before we go to closed session.
I'm timed out.
Oh, yeah,
Timed
that's
out.
time.
He opens his mouth with gagging.
I beat you to it.
Alright,
Can I say one thing? Just something from earlier that I didn't say that I meant to say. The one thing on this, do you mind?
Remember?
1 minute. On this whole financing thing, the one thing that I have a little bit of heartburn on is 15 years on a fire truck.
Yeah.
I wish that was a little, 10 years.
Shorter.
15 years is a long time on a rolling stock.
Didn't we talk about that?
Yeah.
We talked about
Yeah.
the radio, but I didn't remember talking about the fire truck, but maybe we did. I remember talking about the
I think
radio.
we did talk about the truck.
I think we did, because he suggested, well, it is what it is, just dump on principle, I thought, so he said. All right, but I may be wrong.
So we just pay it off sooner.
Yeah, that's what he was saying.
On the
I may be
truck.
wrong.
On the truck.
I remember talking about the radio, I didn't remember. But anyway, I wanted that on the record.
And you know what I need to have answered, and then maybe the two of you could email him? When it says prepayment gets dinged at 1% with the truest, does that mean any time? Or is it the totality of the loan? So if we add to principal, let's say we have some sort of a windfall, I don't see that happening, but you never know. Can we pay off the fire truck without a penalty? So I guess that's the question I need to know.
Yeah. can we pay off parts or attribute it to parts of it?
Right. Because if we're getting dinged 1% every time we add money to principal, that's ridiculous. I don't think it is.
Well, the way I'm reading it, in whole only, it's the 15-year group, in whole only at any time with 1% penalty. I mean, you'd be paying off the whole, not just a piece of it.
You couldn't piecemeal.
You couldn't piecemeal it.
So we can't piecemeal.
All three loans can be prepaid separately. The 15-year radio rep building fire truck is considered a group. The 15-year shell building is a separate thing, and the 5-year garbage truck and ambulance. If you wanted to pay off the fire truck, you're paying it off with the radio and the rest of it.
Yeah, everything in that group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, then going 15.
Well,
So they group.
really, the fear that I have is, you know, I know we're trying to do the fire truck certificate for years. And
We're gonna
if we do 15 on all of them, at some point, we're gonna tap out where we can't.
Right.
We're gonna have all the fire trucks financed.
So the other thing that I saw that he didn't even talk about was doing, yeah, sorry. But he has key government finance is 5 years on the garbage and the ambulance, but not the fire truck.
And that's what we just talked about.
Yeah, I
I
know.
was
I know, that's just
That's
saying.
in there because that variable from the 3 to 5.5. This is the 3, he's 3.5.
Yeah, I know, it costs more, I just,
I agree, because you're gonna be in a position
Makes
where
sense.
we're gonna be starting the second round of trucks and still paying on the first.
you thought that, in the past, we tried to do 8 to 10 on fire trucks.
Even, yeah.
Well, could we ask him to look at doing 10 on the fire?
I think so. See,
Would there be anything wrong with that? What
It was, it was,
Smith's house?
Just got here.
All right.
What if we ask Mr. Rose to look on the fire truck and they redo it at 10 years on the fire truck versus 15? And just see if they can and what impact. Because I kind of agree with you. And that's kicking it out there. Now, if it's a one-time thing and only this one truck, but still, you run the risk of doing a replacement while you're still paying for the first.
They're gonna do the
And it's
same
1%
thing
on the, what was it, 6, how much was the 1%? See, I'm just wondering if we have no penalty with Skyline,
well, the,
You talking about
All right, we'll
that
go
option
for it.
number 30?
All right.
Yeah. Let them find out if we can adjust that fire truck and change it.
We're getting too far in the weeds on that one, so.
All right, so Mr. Chair, the last item that we had is one addition of a closed session item under 2.2-3711, closed meeting authorization, A6, discussion or consideration of the investment of public funds.
So,
Motion is second.
do we need to have anything in addition to that?
jail.
What is general?
very, 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 very vague. Maybe, but to
The
make Steve
discussion
happy.
is timbering.
Needs to call the roll first.
Yes, thank you for the reminder, Mr. Chair.
Ready to roll.
All right, sorry, who made the motion?
Jerry did.
I did.
Jerry, and then second was
Seconded.
Mr. Yoder.
I think that's right.
All right, all right, Mr. Booth.